This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 702, Book of the Month Club, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Volume 1. Welcome to Comic Geek Speak. I'm Brian Deemer.
I'm Jamie D.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Brian Chrisman.
I'm Peter Rios.
And welcome to the show. This episode of Comic Geek Speak is sponsored by InStockTrades.com. You can go to InStockTrades.com each and every month to get our Book of the Month Club selection at a super deep discount. And when you're not shopping for Book of the Month, you can get all kinds of trade paperbacks, hardcovers, and manga for 37% off. It's awesome. 37%. Did you hear me? 37% off. Pants, you're a math guy. Is that a good number?
Yes, it's a very good number.
Okay. And if you order $50, if you order $50 or more,
but it's better than 36.
If you order $50 or more, you'll get free shipping. And it's a family-run company, and everything is packaged very safely and securely and shipped out immediately because, hell, that's the name of the game, right? They're in stock. So go there, be happy, save money, and buy more comics.
You want the 5 of the week?
Sure.
Number 5, Astonishing X-Men, the Omnibus. $75 is the retail price. This you can get it in stock trades, $47.25. That's the Joss Whedon Cassaday stuff. Number 4, Fables, Volume 12, The Dark Ages. Fables still on the week list. Number 3, Superman, New Krypton, Volume 2, hardcover for $15.74. Number 2, Gotham Central, Volume 2, Jokers and Madman, hardcover for only $18.89. And the number 1, Lock and Key Volume 2, Head Games hardcover by $17.49 by Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
So there you go.
Cool. All right. This month we're going to be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Collected Edition, Volume 1. And joining us to talk about that is Joey Aulisio. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good.
He's
happy to be back on the show.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. He's our resident turtle expert.
This is like 3 years in the making, this episode?
Yeah.
I remember when I started bugging you guys, like, how come you never talk about TMNT, like years ago?
He kept throwing it our way. Do this. Here, look, here's some books. Go read that. So it just timed out that this is the 25th anniversary. So and they came out with this volume just this year.
Just this month, I think, actually.
Well, just this month, but I mean that they sort of only announced it this year, I think, right?
Right.
Well, it's been announced for a few years, but it's kind of been tied up in a lot of legal stuff, and also at one point Peter Laird wanted to remaster all these issues, but that kind of didn't happen. Yeah, it's out there now.
It's out there now. Joey goes by the name Malpractice on the forums, in case anybody doesn't know. So you'll know him by his code name. And this is a book of the month, so this will be all spoilers, all in-depth discussion on this. Although, how much, really, are there really spoilers of this kind of book? I mean, what do you?
Well, one kind of big one.
Well, one big one, but come on. If you know the Turtles, how much can our discussion really spoil? But we'll see.
Well, I mean, there's stuff. This is the real Turtles. This isn't that TV bullshit, cartoon nonsense.
But I said it before. I'm surprised how much of this is in the cartoons and how much is in the movie from this.
Well,
almost
the
directly.
movie was good.
Took like whole panels,
Yes.
dialogue is the same and everything.
That was great. I was very pleasantly surprised by that.
I remember being so excited when they announced that there was going to be a cartoon. Oh my God! I remember coming home. What year did the cartoon premiere?
87.
Yeah.
87. I remember coming home, and whenever it was the debut, and I was right there in front of the TV for it, and about 10 minutes in the cartoon, I'm like, what the hell am I watching? This is awful.
Oh, so
I was so angry.
You knew of the books before?
Oh, yeah.
Who read the books before the cartoon, or at least knew about them?
I knew of them, but I never read them.
I didn't read them.
I had a whole bunch of them.
I read them when they were coming out.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just furious at the TV. I couldn't even believe it.
I was okay with, and learning later what these were in comparison to the TV. The only part, and even back then when it was on, that I didn't like was like the California Surfer dude cowabunga crap. Everything else I was pretty okay with from a kids watching.
But
cartoon
that was a huge
standpoint.
part of the.
That was a huge
That's
part
why
of it.
it sucked so much for me.
Yeah.
The only good thing I got out of it was I did buy the first 3-issue miniseries from Archie that came out that
Yeah.
was tied into the cartoon, and I later sold those for a bundle on eBay because those apparently were very expensive. I don't know why, but they were very expensive. So
They just re-released that as a trade too recently, actually.
yeah, don't buy that.
It's got Michael Dooney artwork in it.
Yeah. It's based on the cartoon.
I was surprised at how much this book, how much, like, okay, because you guys were talking, like, you're familiar with the book, so the cartoon didn't work for you, and you thought the cartoon,
It worked enough that I watched it
Yeah.
for a long while.
like, I'm actually surprised that when people say that, oh, the cartoon isn't like, or the movie isn't like the books, really it's, the movie isn't, how do I say this?
The first movie is like the book, in my opinion. It's the other ones that
Yeah.
aren't.
Yeah, like, but when they start to say that, that the turtles were, really violent and grim and gritty, it's like, well, not really. Only like the first issue was kind of like that. The other issues are kind of, I wouldn't call them violent. I wouldn't call them gritty. I wouldn't call them dark. I would
They're
say
a little more ruthless, I think, than the other iterations. But like you're saying, though, it does kind of go away after the first couple issues.
first couple issues, I'd argue it goes away after the first issue. I thought the first issue was really the only one that sort of, and this is I have so many thoughts about this book. So maybe we shouldn't even start. Because I'll talk forever. What do we think of this? What do we think of the book? Since we jumped into the cartoon stuff, let's jump into the book. What do you guys think of the book? Let's start there.
There were 2 issues I could have done without.
I thought there was a whole storyline I could have done without.
I was okay with
That
everything
space
else.
The Fugitoid thing.
Yeah,
I like the artwork in that, though. I thought some of the artwork in that, but
that was more solid. It was more solid, I thought, artwork in
Yeah.
that than in the regular Ninja Turtle book.
when they were in that other space place with the rhinoceros guys, the
Triceratops.
Triceratops guys, yeah, all that, I was kind of like,
Well, that
when is this done? Oh,
That-
God.
One thing I think is kind of a shame, though, is like of all the storylines of the Turtles, early Turtle storylines, yeah, that space one doesn't quite do it for me. But the character in it, Zog, who's the one that goes back to Earth with them, like that story plays out really well.
Yeah.
After this, in a story called Return to New York, which I wish was in this book because it's kind of the end of this whole storyline. But that's a whole other story.
That's
but,
what
yeah.
I was going to say, Peter. Is that's you need that in order to come to the awesomeness that happens later because of that. So,
And some of that's even still playing out today in the current Turtle issues, like the whole Triceratops thing. It does have big implications later on.
I will give it that I thought, for a series that spread over, because this book, we mentioned it before we started, so it's like what, like roughly about 16, 17 issues of Turtles over a 2-year period. And in the first year, there's really only, 2 or 3 issues of the Turtles, right, that actually come out. So, yeah, so for one of those...
Well, they were never expecting to do any more after the first one.
Right, and you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I liked about it was that it was consistent, at least in the story. Like, they weren't trying to tell these... that it didn't jump. The feel didn't jump from issue to issue. It was fairly consistent. They were trying to build up a continuity, build up the mythos, and they figured they had a hit on their hands. So that I appreciated. And, I read through that space stuff, and I was like, okay. But I think that space story being so early on in the Turtles book is another reason why I'm like, well, you know what? The cartoons may be goofy, but you know what? So was that storyline. That storyline was kind of silly. A guy.
Well, it does have the battle, though. Like, kind of rip all those
Now,
guys apart.
Joey, don't be defending everything that we're saying here. You're already starting. But I mean, like there's a scientist in a scientist's brain in a robot's body, and I don't know. I just think that the Turtles world I was expecting not that. After everybody saying that the cartoons are silly and the books aren't that way, I was not expecting a space story. I was like, what? So I don't know.
that never surprised me because I jumped in Turtles later on and then went back and read like these reprints that first did these oversized color reprints. So
that was actually how I first found out about these comics, was from those reprints.
So I read, I was reading the newer issues, And so some of that space stuff, the whole Triceraton guy was already in there. So when I jumped in, that was normal to me because that's all I knew. And then when I went back and read them, I was like, wow, it's intense stuff in the beginning. You know?
Oh, and for me, not knowing that they were there, but knowing of, again, going to the cartoon, since that's what I knew most of, having like Bebop and Rocksteady, seeing them in here when I read through it didn't bother me at all because they were kind of, I know they're not the same thing, but similar enough for me that I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's where something comes from later or whatever, but I didn't mind that. The Fugitoid issue, that bothered me a little bit, but I just think that was long. And
that Fugitoid issue was actually done before. Well, most of it was done before they ever did the Turtles.
Okay.
It was a part of a mini comic they did called Gobbledygook. It was like the first thing they ever released. And then later on, they figured, we can bring this Fugitoid into the regular Turtle book.
But I was at least glad that it was in there and then played out in the storyline.
Well, let me just jump into. I never read any of the comics. Never saw any of the cartoons. Never saw any of the movies. I knew of them.
You're
just
a turtle
from
virgin.
I knew of them just from pop culture. You know, just hearing the thing, and all I knew was just the cowabunga and the pizza thing. That's all I knew. I guess I knew that the comics weren't anything like the cartoons. I did catch that thing. But I mean, now that I've read it, I was like, okay, I read it. I'm done. Won't read it again. This wasn't my cup of tea. From what I've read here, I can't really see what the big draw of it was for me. Now, you mentioned that it doesn't have this big New York storyline, which, okay, that's great. I did enjoy the Donatello issue, I guess, the one with the Kirby thing.
That's the
that
one
was
I
really,
didn't like.
I enjoyed that
Wow.
because it's Kirby the whole
Yeah.
his drawing. I like that. I just it didn't. I mean, I laughed at their origins with sort of the Daredevil-ish, the pushing out of the way and the radioactive material. I like that. I got that reference, but overall, it's just like, okay, I don't see the big deal about it.
Now, did you dabble in any of the toys since you had gotten
Not a thing.
No?
Not a thing. I was like,
Just curious.
off my radar completely.
Vance, did you like the last couple issues at least? Like the last 3?
No, not really.
Right. Well, I was going to say, because to me, it's kind of a shame, because I think to me that's like where the story really kicks in and like moves into like higher pace, and then that builds into all this other stuff later on. So then I was reading it back. I was like, I hope everyone doesn't think like, this is like really light on story, because it kind of is. But those last couple issues are my favorite, like from the Leonardo to number 11.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But-
I did really enjoy that.
Well, when I got to that point, it's like I don't care about it anyway. I'm just trying to get through the book at this point. Honestly, I mean, I just didn't really grab me.
That's how I felt
You
with
cut me deep, Vance.
Well, hey, I'm being honest. It just, it didn't really, grab me.
issue 8, Donatello, and 9. I had a hard time getting through them.
The Kirby one, you really?
Yeah, it was okay, but it wasn't my favorite at all. I liked I liked the entire rest of the book more than those 3 issues.
Okay.
Here's a post that Chris Murin wrote on the forum discussion, and this kind of sums up maybe the way Pants feels, but also the way I feel. I enjoyed the artwork on everything except the human characters. You can see the influence of Richard Corbin in the way Fugitoid is drawn, which I thought worked really well. The depictions of the Turtles and Splinter were beautiful, especially the way every story seemed to pause for one big spread of stunning artwork. From a story standpoint, however, I wasn't overly impressed. I did enjoy the early issues that were clearly parodies, but once the Turtles started to have their own adventures, I thought the stories became weaker. The Kirby issue aside, I found the plots of the middle issues in the book either cliché or dull until the return of Shredder, at which point the tone of the book shifted and became more interesting for the last issues. All in all, I'm glad I read it, and I enjoyed it from a historical perspective as a look back at something hugely influential on both comics and cartoons, but I wouldn't recommend it to a non-comics fan, nor will I read any more beyond this volume. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, that sums my thoughts up pretty well. Basically, yeah.
I'm quite frankly, I'm really looking forward to Volume 2 now because I had sold all my comics and I haven't read them since they came out, which was 87,
Right,
whatever.
some years ago. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to rereading them, and because there's some really great stuff coming up, and especially again that Return to New York storyline is awesome, and it's a 3-issue series, and I love it. I think the best artwork in this whole volume is the Leonardo story.
Yeah, definitely.
When it's snowing and there's so much detail.
That was
I love that.
really nice. I did enjoy that. That was
It's
really
intense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's really good. The one thing that I will say that I prefer the Turtles the way they look in issue 1 than all future issues. I just think they look cooler when they're kind of skinnier and lankier or whatever. I love that look. Like, I have one of those toys that they released, 2 years ago or whatever.
Right.
And they just look awesome.
I still have to get one of them. And I really wanted the black and white set.
No, they're still out there. I think.
Oh, I know. I just need to put some money aside.
But that Leonardo issue, that should be noted that's the guys were really big fans of Steve Bissett's work on Swamp Thing. So he at some point, I guess he had left DC. I guess it was after he did the Swamp Thing and everything like that. I know that he kind of came over and was hanging out with them and showed them how to basically different ways that they can do toning, and that's why he's credited on that issue. And I think they kind of, I think they learned really quick, because I saw it I always like the tones in all the rest of the issues, but in that Leonardo one especially, it just kind of pops right off the page.
Actually, I'm pretty sure he did that bottom story all the way through the story in April's house, because it doesn't look like the regular art, their regular art style. So that's why I thought he did more of for that issue. For me, this just took me right back into 1984. This was just like a step back into the Wayback Machine with Mr. Pete, with Sherman and Mr. Peabody. It really has that 84 feel, that 84 smell, that 84 reading of the whole black and white explosion. It really took me back to that. As a whole, about half of this book is worth it. The other half just isn't, and it's pretty much just where everybody else falls. The first issue is interesting. I think not great artwork, especially if this was like their second. If you're telling me the Fugitoid stuff, especially that first one was before this, it was almost like they forgot how to draw, to be honest with you, because as soon as I turned that Fugitoid and looked at that, I was like, wow, is this Eastman and Laird? Because the artwork just looks so much cleaner and crisper and just better.
Well, I don't know if they did the Fugitoid before the I know it was just released before the Turtles. So I'm not 100% on that.
Okay, but still, I just really thought that they were higher on their game as far as artwork and storytelling than they were in even like that first issue of the Turtles. The first issue was just so iconic. It's almost like it's almost like you're reading that Superman origin again. I mean, you pretty much there. I don't think there's a kid out there about your age, Malpractice, or Shane's, that doesn't know the origin of the Turtles, how they came to be, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's one of those benchmark things, kind of like people in their 30s, the G.I. Joe comics were their benchmark. This is a benchmark for, kids a little bit, in their 25 years, since this is 25th anniversary. For me, the book just picks up from the Michelangelo story, all the way through the rest of it. And to me, I love the snow in the Michelangelo story much better. I mean, I understand the snow in the Leonardo one, but this one, the artwork I just thought was so
it was awesome
cool.
too, absolutely.
And I loved the whole story. I mean, the fact he gets the cat, and just it really. I actually enjoyed the one shots all the way through. I thought those were really neat because it gave you a little idea on who each character was. But to me, the book really picked up from that point on. It did kind of slow down. I mean, I know why they did it, and I liked his contribution to it, the Dave Sim contribution in the issue number 8. I thought that was, what he did. That was in, of course, the Conan days, when it was more of a Conan parody book. But I still really enjoyed that, just to see the interaction between the two. And then, like everybody said, I really, not everybody, but the people who were enjoying it, it just really picked up. And I just thought of everything. It just like stopped, and I was very disappointed the way it stopped, because I really wanted to find out what went on. I mean, if anything, I thought maybe they should have just left left it go with issue 10 and put 11 as your beginning of the next book type deal. Just have the huge cliffhanger with them leaving and the defeat, and they're driving off to Casey's grandmother's house, and then let 11 pick up the next book and then continue on if it's going to be only 3 more issues to finish out the storyline. So all in all, I do want to read the next one just so I can read the end of that story, because I did a little looking up about this book on Wikipedia, just, reading the little blurbs. And so definitely want to read the rest of that, and from there on, I don't know if I need to, but all I got to say, I did enjoy it.
Now, not knowing that that story continues, I like the way this book ended.
I didn't mind the ending either.
Not knowing what comes, because it gives me a nice ending to, okay, they're recovering, they're ready to jump back into it, but I may feel different once I get to that and read those 3 issues, since you and Brian seem to speak so highly about it. I'm
well, the issues that I'm talking about aren't like 19, 20, and 21, so you got a while to go yet before that.
At least that New York story sounds neat.
I like a lot of the other stuff in between, like in between the issue 11 and 19, though, is a lot of stuff. I think that was around the time they started bringing in like friends of theirs and stuff like that to do books. It was around there a little bit later. But there's just a lot of stories on the farm and stuff kind of set in between there, like little one shots and stuff like that. But then when you get to 19, then it's like if you feel like, oh, okay, that's it, we're back, because Eastman and Laird came back to start writing again.
The last story was so different narratively. Like, you had those long prose pieces that she was writing and all that it felt so different from everything else that I thought it was a nice capper. So I actually didn't mind that last story, surprisingly. I think the first story is just great. I mean, when we had that, I remember now when we had that discussion on like the top 25 must-reads, and we were trying to put it like in a historical context, and we someone threw in Turtles, if it wasn't you, Shane, or somebody else, or maybe it was Brian. And I don't know. I would have to say, just based on what I read alone, not on anything else that comes down, because obviously I didn't read it, I would say Turtles #1 is a must-read, because it's just so... It's so awesome. First of all, it's told differently than any other story in the book, right? It's all told in captions, and it's like very mythical almost in a way. And I know people describe it as like a parody, and maybe that's what even Eastman and Laird describe it as, a parody of Ronin, a parody of Daredevil, a parody of,
Uncanny X-Men.
The X titles. And there's artwork that is straight out of like what Miller does, But I don't know if it's so much a parody as it is an homage. I mean, it's not told in a way that made me go, that I laughed with it. Not the way that Cerebus first volume of Cerebus is so clearly a Conan parody, and you're laughing along with it. But there wasn't anything in this I thought that I really was like, oh, that's funny, haha, yeah, they're spoofing. No, it's like you see the tribute almost to those stories, and I think it's what's even doubly funny is that they're parodying the X titles and Frank Miller and Daredevil, all these like, critically acclaimed books or popular books or whatever at the time. And then what happens? That first issue goes and they make them multimillionaires after a while. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that first issue is I think that issue is just like, I just, that's the best of the bunch for me. And especially when I wrap it up into like the whole historical thing and in comics history. And I guess in my mind, I always, I just assumed, I don't know how you guys felt about this, but like, I just thought because the Turtles explosion happened, that there were like 12 issues in a year, or like they were just pumping out all the, no, it was 2 issues. Yeah. And really it was only the one issue that kept getting printing after printing after printing. None of the,
two and three got quite a few printing.
Well, but what I'm saying is the first issue came out and it took them by such a surprise that it almost, issue 2 became, well, shit, we better make more comics, which will make more money. It wasn't like you said, they thought it was going to be a one-off and that was it. So it's like Star Wars. It's like George Lucas' Star Wars, right? Nobody knew if Star Wars was going to work or if it was going to fail. So it worked. So he jumps back in and creates the next 2 and 3, right? So it's the same thing with Turtles. So my thing with the whole explosion of it, though, is that I assumed that the Turtles, while I think it does have a place in its history, and it actually feels to me, after I read a lot of the history, that this book, that first issue of Turtles, is more akin to what happened with Image than anything else because Image came out, Youngblood sold $1 billion, Spawn $1 billion, and they were so wrapped up in the money that the Image people got greedy and they tried to put out more, but they were so delayed or whatever. I'm not saying Eastman and Laird acted the same, but it was sort of the same pattern. First issue comes out, they make billions of dollars. Okay, let's go make. I'm hyperbole.
Well, they didn't make billions of dollars.
It's hyperbole, and then they go, okay, well, let's make more. Obviously, it's a whole different mindset. But when you read about it, it's like, oh, you know what? The Turtles were not responsible for starting the independent craze. That independent craze was already happening. It was, if anything, it was speculative because it was all the black and white boom. Like all of a sudden, every publisher was like, we got to have a black and white book because retailers are looking for it because of the whole Eastman and Laird put out that AP story. So suddenly everybody was going to comic shops and looking for the first issue, but nobody had the first issue because there was only 3,000 copies made and created this madness. So all the publishers jumped in on it. And what happened by 86, 87, the boom crashed. The black and white boom was done. But independent comics were still going. Now maybe they benefited from like the way the Turtles madness, but I have a list. Like Cerebus was up to issue 62 by the time Turtles came out. American Flag was up to issue 8. DNA Agents was up to 11. E-Man was up to 14. John Sable was up to 12. Love and Rockets was up to 6. Zot was up to 2. So I now understand more where that first issue's historical, putting it in context, really comes to play.
I'm not going to say you're wrong on that, Peter, but I do think though that at the same time, like Jeff Smith even said, like he would have never started Bone if it wasn't for Ninja Turtles.
But that's a whole other. I think when did Bone start?
In the 90s.
Yeah, see, I'm talking 80s.
Inspiration from that that started. And
no.
At the time when their issues were coming out, they were drawing a lot of attention to all these other indie creators and stuff like that.
And so, I said that, but I don't mean the 90s stuff. I mean the immediate 80s, early 80s when people are talking about the effect that the Turtles have. I think the Turtles had more effect on the industry and not as much effect on the actual creativity of other creators and other indie books that most people.
That's fair.
Yeah, because I mean, what the spinoffs didn't even not the spinoffs the parody of the parody, like the adolescent
radioactive black belt hamsters.
That all came out in '86. That was all '86. Like here, I have them all, most of them. Mildly microwaved prepubescent gophers, geriatric gangrene jujitsu gerbils, preteen dirty jean kung fu kangaroos, cold-blooded chameleon commandos. Naive interdimensional commando koalas, and of course Boris the Bear, which fought all the parodies. But most of that stuff didn't really happen to like late 85, 86. So
yeah, but that was the black and white boom. You pretty much
those were
other than Cerebus, everything else that you mentioned, I think other than Zot, were all basically color comics, just being put out by like First and Eclipse and all that. But really the huge black and white, because of course these were in black and white. These were not color comics. The demand just wasn't there for them. And as soon as this came out, then other people and other creators realized, hey, we can do black and white. And that's, to me, where Cerebus really, started hitting its stride. People started discovering Cerebus and not, saying, oh, as, black and white comics is, almost the redheaded stepchild of comics. People started appreciating them for what they actually were.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what I mean about like the Image thing too. Like, other publishers, look at Marvel and DC, how they changed a lot of their house styles because of what Image did, or a lot of those creators. So they were trying to jump on the bandwagon. So I think that's what we see more of. There's a lot of people jumping on the Turtles bandwagon, but of course, like whenever that happens, none of those creations stuck around. You can't, tell me one sort of comic that is like the Turtles that happened because of the Turtles and is still around today. I think you'd be hard pressed.
What about
to find.
Usagi Yojimbo?
That was probably the only one, but that sort of started at the same time, right?
Yep, they actually started crossing over too.
Yeah. So that
I think also though, but I think when people say like about the Turtles, like you are right, it's not necessarily from a creative standpoint. It's more like you wouldn't have the Zarek Foundation today if it wasn't for Ninja Turtles. since Peter Laird, he puts all the money behind that, and continues giving money for people to self-publish. And I think that's more along the lines of where it's, when Kevin Eastman had started Tundra, which kind of, was a big failure, but he did try. Yeah. I'm saying like that. I think that's more when people talk about, its influence in terms of self-publishing and stuff like that.
And I'm not trying to take away from it. I'm just trying to go, oh, this is what I learned by reading this. And there was an article. It wasn't an article. It was a post on one of the news boards, like from '96, by Mark Thompson, who runs Cold Cut Comics, and they specialize in small press and alternative comics, and Cold Cut distribution and all that. And he laid out this awesome article, which I'm going to have to post in this episode thread. And it was here, and I kept reading, and I'm like, now sure, this is his perspective, but it sort of started to all sort of make sense. And I'm trying to find the one paragraph. Oh, here it is. So obviously there was a lot. There was the bust came fairly quickly, and companies like Aircell and Eternity and Amazing and Wondercolor and Malibu ended up dying and being bought up by a former distributor who merged them all into the new Malibu. Dark Horse suffered through, but then managed to pick up other properties, especially Alien. Once Alien hit, then Dark Horse was set. They were like, done. Here it does say Usagi Yojimbo squeaked out of the bust with his tail between his legs. He had frantic graphics behind him.
Yeah, and it looked... Usagi started in 87.
Really?
So it's probably safe to say that after seeing the huge success of Ninja Turtles, that he probably thought, well, I might be able to pull this off. I don't know if he probably already had the idea. He didn't necessarily take the inspiration, but he probably used it as a marketability study and said, hey, I can sell books about a samurai rabbit,
Well, yeah, the anthropomorphic
right.
movement really took off with Turtles.
Brian, did you have the Turtles figure of Usagi?
I still do.
Nice. I saw it and never picked it up.
Oh, no, I have a different figure. No, I never got that one. I wanted it, but I never found it. But I do have a different Usagi figure.
That's cool.
Oh, Peter, you mentioned like how you said you read the first issue and you didn't see it as much of a parody as it's made out to be.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought the Raphael issue is actually the best parody of the bunch. I don't know if any of you guys read it that way, but it's clearly poking fun at the
Wolverine and...
Well, no, it starts off actually with a scene out of like Uncanny X-Men, I think '96, like Claremont's first issue,
Mm-hmm.
and then that thing where he almost kills Nightcrawler in the fight. It's like almost the same thing, and he runs off, whatever. It kind of starts that way, and even the name, the Micro Series, is a joke about Marvel's because they had so many mini-series, especially X-Men ones at the time. Like the Micro Series be funny because it's just one issue. I can't say one shot Micro Series, but I thought it was kind of a nice parody of Frank Miller's Child's Play issue of Daredevil, the one where he fights the Punisher.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny. That's how I kind of viewed Casey Jones. I kind of viewed him as a really ridiculous version of the Punisher.
Yeah.
Like, and I like how they, I think they come more to what the logical conclusion would be in that issue than kind of what happened in that in the Daredevil issue. But and even that, I even like how they play with. It's kind of a bit of an assault on Marvel because they even have the classic Marvel device where like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee would appear in the issue, and that issue like Eastman and Laird appeared, but they're the muggers, mugging the woman. And little things like that, when I read it recently, I was like, that's actually kind of funny. I kind of saw what they were doing there.
Yeah, Casey really is. He's like the Wolverine from Cerebus. He's sort of very similar in tone to that character.
He's not Wild Dog.
No.
Casey kind of evolved, though. He's a bit of a joke in this, but I think he turned him into a bit more of a badass as it goes along.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to bring that up when we were talking about how are the Turtles hardcore or not, and in later issues, I mean, Casey is, he's pretty violent and pretty nasty, and I think it plays into the whole the Turtles are not the Turtles of the cartoon.
Yeah, well, that's when Peter had said about he thought the first issue was the darkest and most violent, whatever. I mean, I do kind of agree because it kind of goes away from the violence, but I'm sorry, that issue going from the Donatello one shot into issue 10.
You mean the Leonardo?
Leonardo, I'm sorry, yeah, Leonardo one shot into issue 10. I mean, that is freaking intense and
bloody.
And violent, and everything, gritty towards the end there. I mean, I thought it had everything, and those of everything, those two are my two favorite issues in this volume.
I think even that, though, the storytelling and everything, it's just top notch on that one. Like the layouts and everything.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I think they really kind of mastered everything.
God, see, I think it got less experimental as it went on.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Even like the issue 11, like where they're showing like April's mind and stuff through the panels and how she's going crazy from all. Like I don't know. That seems a lot more experimental than anything up to that point.
I actually thought the artwork in that last issue was. I didn't like the like. Look at page page 582, like that shot of which what is that, Raphael with the one with the sigh?
I can never remember who the hell they are.
Yeah, like it's a decent picture, but it's not what the Turtles were in that first issue, like what Brian was talking about, or like the shot of on page 591 where they're all sort of around April on the thing. Like that's. Maybe their style is changing, but that's nowhere near what kind of mood they were and the way they were doing their artwork in the first issue. Like I didn't. I'm much more enamored with the first couple issues and artwork style, and like that Fugitoid, the way that he's changed. It's funny, like they went into that Fugitoid stuff with like this very pointillism kind of inking style, and there's that shot of him and the crab on page 203, and that's like go grab your Dave Peterson mouse guard, and you're gonna that scene where one of the mice actually fights another crab, like the same sort of pointillistic ... look is in that Dave Peterson stuff. So that's a cool image. Now, juxtapose that with some of the inking style and some of the scratchiness of that last chapter. It just doesn't feel the same to me.
Well, I think that might have more to do with the fact that those first couple issues are a little more Kevin Eastman than they are Peter Laird. Like he was someone that came more from the underground comic scene, and it's like people said, like that very Richard Corbin, like that was more his side. Like Laird was actually the one who was trying to get in at Marvel and everything. Like he was like he was trying to start a legitimate comic artist career. Kevin Eastman was more just like into mini comics and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of where you see it's way more Kevin Eastman like at the beginning than as it goes along. I think that they kind of it was more like he was just inking and stuff like that.
And Kevin Eastman rocks.
I love that.
Get a sketch from Kevin Eastman. Like he always does like free sketches at cons and everything, and it's still very much that style. Where Peters is always it's more the anatomy is a little better and everything, but a little more like a classic comic artist.
No, I love that first issue's artwork, but I didn't mind things as they changed and went along. I just took it as different people came and went, styles were evolving, and
well, it's also how many years too later. 2.5 years later. Probably.
I didn't mind that last issue at all because that's just what they kind of evolved to looking. I love that sleek look, but that was only one issue, and everything else evolved from there to be bulkier looking Turtles.
But they also had, even in this last issue, 11, there's hardly any white space on any page. They are jam-packing detail on all of these pages. The scenes in the woods, the scenes in the city. It's just, there's a lot of detail. A lot of comics today don't even have that much detail. So even if it wasn't as experimental, they were still working hard on a lot of these panels. It seems to me, based on a lot of stuff that you see.
And I take none of that away, because some of these issues are like 40 pages, right?
Yeah, they're long.
Yeah,
these they're not just whipping out just 22 pages of stuff. And no, believe me, I appreciate a lot of what the artwork is, and I pulled out some like page 101 where the car comes crashing through the window there, and look at all that glass debris and all the cans and the grill of the car and the smashing of the windshield. Like that's awesome. That's a very raw kind of composition that I don't think many artists today even get that detailed. Or the page 105.
Yeah.
Where Joey just talked about like the very underground feel. Like you almost expect this, like if this was Crumb, like there would be people in the background, humping and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it just, you would find, there's so many other little stories going on in that splash page.
I like 266 and 267.
266.
And that was the space one, but
uh-huh.
all that detail on all those asteroids. I love in, what was it, 10, where they're in the April store, and it's the Shredder sitting up against the counter, and everybody else, Turtles on one side.
I was a little bummed that in the issue, like that's a humongous like pullout, like when they come in the. Because it was like, you turn the page, you're like, what's in here? And they turn the light on, and it was like it was like the huge thing. It was like that one in like All-Star Batman and Robin, like where you pulled it out and it was all the different Batmobiles and everything. But it was a lot cooler because it was the center of the store and everything. And in this one, it just kind of like they make it small for the splash page. But
that's actually pretty cool. I didn't know that they did that. If you're reading the issue and it's a black page, meaning that they're in the store black, and you flip open the fold out or something, and boom, there it is.
Look at page 306, 307. Just a perspective on that when they return to the. Are they returning? Yeah, I think they're returning to
from space.
Yeah. Like, look at all the little people on the ground, and they created a little perimeter so nobody goes around it. And
those little tiny people are more anatomically correct than Rob Liefeld people.
Oh, stop it!
When as simplistic as those people are, I thought that was fantastic too.
That's a great shot. Yeah. It's a great that. That's the kind of creativity that I like, that I think they do very well. Page 164, 165. Simple. It's nothing majorly, artistically, visually stunning, but the 4 panels on the one page matching the 4 panels on the other page. And again, the perspective of them, you're looking over their shoulder onto that building. That's awesome. I dig that. Page 198. You talk about the background work. Look at page 198, all those trees and the logs and the moss. And come on, that's awesome. That's some good stuff.
I like going from, this is going way ahead, 578, and then going to Michelangelo in 579 and 80, and then Raphael in 80. Is that it?
Mm-hmm. All him punching out the wood and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's all upset. Is that what it is?
No, it's Michelangelo.
it's Michelangelo.
Yeah. Michelangelo. Yeah, there's a lot of good panel layouts, splash page artwork. You'd get to that, and you'd open it up and see the splash page, and I'd think, boom, there it is.
Yeah.
Something I was waiting for the whole issue. Boom.
I think that's a reason I gravitated towards these so much when I was younger, and I kind of come back to them a lot. It was like you said, it was just like a lot of imagination just thrown on the page. It was different than a lot of the stuff coming out, because I obviously grew up in the early 90s reading comics and stuff, and reading these going back, it kind of captured my imagination, unlike what a lot of what I was reading at the time did. And that's
the other cool thing was so Raphael is like probably the one that is most developed, if you can call it that, from like really early on. Like he's the hothead and whatever. But
I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, and Leonardo's the leader, right? Is
yes.
he the one?
Yep.
Okay. But it was cool. Like I never knew Donatello was like, they made him out to be eventually in this book, like sort of like the brainy one,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the
He's
one
the
with the
tech guy.
technology. Yeah, I never knew that. So I thought that was cool to see. Eventually, they started to flesh some of that stuff out. And I guess Michelangelo is what? Just
He's a comedian.
The other dude? Oh, he's the comedian? Okay.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But they kind of later on thought that was a bit of a mask for like what was going on in his head. Like he was really worried about losing everybody and everything. That's why he takes it the hardest on the farm and everything like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
I always thought there in rereading this that there was kind of a story where they all were like you said about Raphael. Like I think Raphael's the only one, like because April mentions that she was the one that scared him, because he didn't seem phased by anything that had happened with the Shredder, destroying the shop and everything, and like he just kind of went on with his life. And I like that everybody else kind of had an imperfection they had to work over to a bit. Like even April, like I think because I remember someone on the forum had mentioned like, they didn't really like her character in this because she seemed kind of pointless. And that's a point that runs through this whole series, even up till now, is that she's always kind of looking for a purpose in the story, because there's the one issue where they're stuck in space and she goes down to the building to try and see if she can do something, and like, you know, she walks back just saying like, why did I even bother, because you know, what am I going to do? And I think that kind of runs through her character for the rest of that story, and then like I think she's kind of found a family with these people at the end, and that's kind of what the whole last page is.
But I love that where Raphael, and I totally identify with him being the hothead, my goodness. The stories my wife could tell. But I love that aspect of him, that it didn't look like it fazed him, but he is the one that is worried so much that he is up first and bed last, watching over the farm, making sure all the perimeter's okay, standing on top, looking, waiting, searching, making sure that they're safe, because he, in my mind, he thinks he could have done more and screwed up, and that's how April lost the shop, her house, they had to move, all that was all because of them, and in particular, him.
That all comes to a head in Return to New York, which of course we can't talk about. But I say that you are right. That's kind of the path he chooses for the rest of the series.
So who's the guy on page 169? Did I read this wrong, or there's somebody spying on him? But we don't get. That's not told in this story.
It's the Foot, isn't it?
Is it?
I assumed it was the Foot.
No, I thought it was just. It looks like some guy smoking a cigarette, right?
169
on page 69.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's like watching April fix them all up, and he's got a cigarette. It's probably like some kind of detective or something, right? Like, that wasn't touched on in this book, I don't think.
It's either somebody that they. I'm trying to remember myself, because you know I'm not going to sit there and reread the story now and figure out what it was, but yeah, it's either someone from the Foot or it's someone that's like you said, is going to come out later that I'm just not remembering.
Okay.
Or it's a plot point they just forgot about, and like it's not again. Probably that one.
Yeah. Thought I was seeing things. And the turtles are supposed to be what, like 15, 16 years old?
Yeah, 15.
Yeah. So why is one of them asking for beer when they go to the?
Because he could take it.
Because the turtles, man.
years.
Yeah.
Because they're mutants.
Bad.
You know,
bad.
15 turtle years.
Turtle years, man, that equals like 30, 40,
Bad role
50.
models.
Well, yeah, they don't drink beer anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, well, see, people are saying,
Well,
the
pizza.
pizza. Well, maybe that's what they had to do. They couldn't make it beer, so they got to make it pizza. That's funny.
One thing I want to mention that I really love in a lot of these the earlier issues, I always love how you could see like whatever Eastman and Laird were enjoying that they were reading always ended up like on the floors of the apartments in the book and stuff like that. Like you obviously see Cerebus issues all over the place and a lot of issues, Nexus, and which I think you could attribute as part of that part of an ode to that the space storage you were talking about. But what else? Like American Splendor, I think is an issue. There is one issue too that's really funny, where you see a book on the floor called Marvel's Stupid Wars.
Yeah.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what the caption was next to it.
There's also the the Rex Tab building, or
Backwards for the...
Retscab or whatever.
Yeah, right. Rick Scab.
It's the Fantastic Four Baxter building. The old one.
And of
or
course,
the
the
original.
guy's name was Baxter.
Yeah.
That's another thing I want to touch on. Like to me, like I know a lot of people think, the Turtles' real nemesis is the Shredder. To me, it's Baxter Stockman. But like again, you don't really see a whole lot of him yet in this volume. But he plays out he's really their arch nemesis, in my opinion.
Here's Webhead62. He says, being a child of the 80s, I was part of the big bang of Ninja Turtles. I didn't read this collection, but I have 5 collected volumes from back in the day of the Mirage stuff, all reprinted in color. It's funny, I think the biggest shock to me as a 5-year-old was not the level of violence in the book, but the fact that they said ass. My mom obviously didn't look at these before she bought them. Super Cool says, I'm happy to have a collection to put on my shelf. I was a kid in the 80s, but missed out on these comics. It wasn't until the beginning of the 2003 cartoon that I got interested in the original books, and have since collected all 62 issues of Volume 1. I still enjoy those issues. I wasn't too keen on the space stuff, but it grew on me. My favorite issue is still Leonardo, number 1. The top 3/4 being Leo getting the crap kicked out of him, and then the bottom fourth having the rest of the guys getting ready for Christmas. And then to have reveal that the Shredder is back alive. It was genuinely shocking the first time because everything else in the book seemed so final. I also enjoyed that you get to see the individual personalities come through. While they didn't get nearly as extreme as the 80s cartoon, it was nice to have them become differentiated than just by the weapons.
And I totally love that about Michelangelo going into the toy store and playing with all the toys. That was brilliant.
Oh, those little orphan aliens, right? That
Yeah.
called.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the CCS, which is the Center for Cartoon Studies, did a story in the Turtles book recently, in Tales of the TMNT, where they touched on those on that. It was a kind of a continuation of that story. It's really cool if you want to check that out.
That's cool.
Joey, did you ever? There's a good story here that's loosely connected to all this. Is in the summer of 1989, we were camping up in Maine, and we were hanging out at the campsite one day, and I was in the hammock reading some comics, and there were a couple teenage boys in the site next to us. And the one guy, he was a little bigger. He comes over and says, "Oh, you like comic books?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I love them." And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like trying to draw or whatever. I had a pad with me, and I was terrible. He says, "Yeah, my dad taught me some things about how to draw." And he whips out and he just starts sketching this beautiful Wolverine. I mean, it looked fantastic. I'm like, "Holy mackerel! Wow, what the? That's really good. You know, who's your dad?" And he's like, "Oh, he's Rick Veitch. He's currently working on the Ninja Turtles." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I love the Ninja Turtle." You know, I was reading. This was when I was reading because Rick Veitch started right after Return to New York, right?
Yeah, I did the River.
Yeah, so I was reading Return to New York, and he was already working on the next issues that were coming out. That was pretty cool. So
That's a great story too. The River. The Rick Veitch stuff that came later on, and but that's cool. So I think I heard you mention that on the show once before.
yeah, it's just
the Army at Love episode, I believe.
yeah, probably, and the timing was amazing because that was the summer of '89, and Rick Veitch's first issue is listed as August of '89. So
That's cool. That's a neat little tidbit.
yeah.
Here's from MWit80. He said, "I just finished the 600-plus pages of Turtle Power, and boy, is my sword arm tired. Yuck, yuck, yuck. I really enjoyed it. The art is always fun when a fight scene comes around. The stories bounce around everywhere. I enjoyed the book bouncing between sci-fi, fantasy, superhero, and kung fu genres, although it did take a couple pages to adjust to. The Dave Sims story was great. I love that little aardvark. What I thought was interesting was how much the Foot Clan story had in common with the first movie. There were a lot of scenes in number 1 that were almost directly lifted. The entire Raphael issue is there. Also, the Leo issue and issue 10 were retooled. And the Shredder's rooftop death in issue 1 was very close to how he bit it at the end of the first movie. I enjoyed it, guys. Good pick. And again, I think we mentioned it, but really all of the explosion happens after these issues. Like, just if people want to sort of know where, because it wasn't until it was that one role-playing game, I think, and then the toys or some kind of source book, game book or thing.
There was a company called Dark Horse, not the same one as the comics, but they had done these lead figures that were like these big smash hit.
Right.
And then the iron-ons to the T-shirts. I remember the thing they sold; those went over really well. And the RPG games were huge. But Eric, he actually just passed away recently. The guy who did the RPG games, it was like Eric Wick or something like that.
Yeah, it was for Palladium.
Yeah. Those were a big success. And then, like, from that, I think they wanted to make action figures. Like, that was the next step they wanted to do. And someone said, you could sell more action figures if you had a cartoon. And there you go. That's kind of where it all went from there. That was a different age where the action figures sold the cartoons, not the other way around.
And if people are if they don't know and they're wondering what the Daredevil references are, obviously the Foot Ninja Clan is in reference to over in Daredevil. They have the hand. Splinter, the rat, is very similar to Stick, which was Daredevil's mentor. What are the other ones?
Daredevil's in their origin. He's the guy that pushes
Yeah, the same goo or the same canister that hits him in the eyes and enhances his abilities.
Blinds him and enhances his abilities.
Falls into the thing, and that's how the Turtles become the Turtles. The first issue cover to issue 1 is a direct lift of Ronin, what Frank Miller was doing over at DC, where it was like a black cover with a heavy border, and then it actually was this first issue cover for Turtles, was it a wraparound or no?
Yeah.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
So that was very much like what Ronin was. And there are several sort of like almost direct lifts from like the way Frank Miller would throw Daredevil around on a page, like on page 20. that top panel where one of the turtles, Raphael, is bouncing over the cityscape, and you could almost just lift him out of there and put Daredevil in, and that's like straight out of what Frank Miller would draw, or just right there, like on the bottom panel on page 20, where he's coming at you in that all white background. Like he did that a lot with Daredevil.
There's a lot of pages later on too where you can see a lot of things where like Raphael or someone will be walking on the wire. That's a famous like Frank Miller thing he does in all his works.
Yeah.
You always see his hero walking on a wire at some point.
Yeah, and that's cool. Like that to me is cool. Like I don't find that negative at all. Like that was their point of the book, and that's the kind of stuff you got to throw in there if that's the point of why you're doing all that.
And of course, one of the heroes using Tusai as Elektra.
Very much, very much. What else here? Any more? This is from Max Headroom. I'd recommend everyone check out the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle film that was out a few years ago. The fight scene in the rain is a classic in my household between Leo and Raph. Same company that is doing the new Astro Boy animated movie.
I so want to see that, and I have yet to. Even my kids, when that was on commercials, they were asking about it, and I just haven't picked it up yet.
I liked it. I really did. I dug it. It's like Patrick Stewart is the voice of the villain, I think.
Nice.
And I think Sarah Michelle Gellar is April, maybe?
Probably. Matt was very excited.
Now,
It was okay. I thought it was all right. It wasn't. I don't think it was quite as dark as everyone was making it out to be, but there was some cool stuff. The rain scene was really cool.
You purist, you.
I can remember going to the theater to see the previous live-action movies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everyone.
I only saw the first one.
Yeah, I only saw the first one.
Nope,
Yeah.
all of them.
I mean, I've seen the other ones like on TV, but
I've never seen them.
Oh, you
period.
haven't?
No.
You only need to see the first one. You don't need to see Secret of the Ooze or any of that other stuff.
Oh, I like Secret of the Ooze.
I've got to rewatch that because it's been years since I saw that.
I had a little problem with Turtles in Time, but, it was all right.
But that's the Cerebus issue. Like, that was kind of what the story was. Like, the scepter and everything like that. Like, but yeah, the movie bears no real resemblance to the issue at all.
Yeah. But that first one was great.
Yeah, the first one's excellent. Now, actually, they're actually at the moment working pre-production on the new live-action Turtles movie, which is basically, I guess, gonna kind of be that first movie for this generation, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, and back then, I mean, the animatronics and those costumes for their faces, that was incredible.
Well, and then they're also fighting. They're fighting in those suits.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
Thank you, Jim Henson.
Yeah, absolutely.
I posted on the talkback thread for this episode...
Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah, someone did a Turtles Reservoir Dog mashup. Nice. So they used scenes from Turtles with dialogue from... And it's funny, but it's like, I'm sitting there watching it, I'm going, wow, that actually still looks good. Like, it makes me want to go back and, like, watch it again.
Yeah,
I think you, Peter, you think you would actually really enjoy that first movie if you're watching it after this.
Yeah.
So I think it takes all the elements of the things you enjoyed about it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It kind of adds a little more weight to some of it.
Neutron 11, he said, let's see. After reading it, I couldn't remember if I had read these before, but then seeing the cover at issue 3, I was like, he said, of course I had it. He said, upon not finding it in my lame non-drawer boxes, I started searching through my box in the garage of crap from high school, where I knew I had a few oversized comics. Sure enough, there it was. I hadn't touched that book since 1986. I felt that the journey through the huge volume was similar to my experience with Cerebus. I really had to trudge through the first volume of Cerebus. Strangely enough, I had been thinking that I wanted to jump back into that book. And then as I read the Turtles, I started to get a Cerebus vibe. Then in popped Cerebus. I take it as a sign. Around issue 6, I started to find the characters interesting, although I never really caught on to why April was necessary, and her hair was awful. I get it that the Turtles needed a human to be in contact with, but I really would have liked for April to have a role beyond the damsel in distress. I don't think she was a damsel in distress, other than that first story, right? She had more of a
kind
role.
of the last story. I mean, she didn't do too much other than kind of get her out of here and cause one of the turtles to have to get her just do her.
If anything, I almost see her as like a Nightingale, Florence Nightingale type. They always come back and she bandages them up.
It gives them the mother. It gives the band of lost boys a mother. So
I really liked the issues, but felt that they were kind of thin. The exception being the issues devoted to each individual turtle. Those books were the best. I especially liked the Leonardo issue, which reminded me of the silent Wolverine issue of Alpha Flight. I love how the language of movement told the story flawlessly. The contrast of Christmas preparations in the lower frames made the silent battle sequences even more powerful. Probably the strongest art in the whole issue, in the whole volume. I give it a 3 out of 5. Freaking swears. 4 out of 5 for just the Leo issue. Should we listen to Matt? See what Matt
Sure.
has to say about... couldn't be here for this episode, but he recorded a voicemail.
Hey guys, this is Matt. I just wanted to call in about the book of the month, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Overall, at first when I picked it up, I thought this was going to take me back to my youth, watching the cartoons and seeing how much I didn't like the first movie. But then as I read the book, I realized that all the inaccuracies I found in the movie were actually correct, and that the cartoon was actually way off. I really enjoyed it. The stories were very well until you start getting to the fugitive android honeycut story, and then after there, they kind of took a sidebar that I didn't care for too much until they got back, and it wasn't really until the Shredder came back in the Leonardo solo story that I really got back into it. Actually, I think I'm going to continue and get the other volumes and see where the Turtles go and see how much they based a couple episodes on the actual material rather than just go their own route. Overall, it was a lot more violent than what I thought it would be, and I'm fairly certain, unless I'm way off, that that's supposed to be Daredevil that saved the blind man that got hit in the head by the canister. Overall, it was a good choice. Whoever picked it, I really enjoyed it. Made me realize how much I should have been reading the series growing up rather than watching the cartoon. So hope to see you guys soon. Hopefully next book of the month I can be with you guys in the studio and talk with you guys then. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.
Wow, me and Matt agree on something.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how the voicemail was going to go at first. You never know.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. What is Casey Jones on page 128, 129? Is he watching the A-Team?
I think he's watching T.J. Hooker.
Oh, T.J. Hooker. Mm-hmm. Oh, he does say T.J. there. Because there was another sort of A-Team reference early on.
There was a Love It When a Plan Comes Together, I think, somewhere in the book.
Yeah. And I thought somebody said, I pity the fool.
No, I don't know about that, but possible.
Oh, no, I could have sworn that was in the dialogues. Not in this
I think
page.
there's an E-Team reference, but I don't know if anyone specifically referenced it that way. But you could be right.
Don't ever doubt me. So he's watching T.J. Hooker. I think that's funny. I think that's one of those little small pieces of trivia, that's kind of funny.
Well, that's kind of what makes it funny, that he's inspired by all these bad cop shows and go out and clean up the streets.
Now, whenever I hear
kind of like a real making it, like I said, really just taking the Punisher down a little more.
Right.
Whenever I hear this phrase, I always think it's an homage to Star Wars, but I know at some point somebody says, I got a bad feeling about this, and just immediately I always think that's something in there.
What do you guys think of the packaging of this volume?
I love the cover.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah.
The whole thing is extremely lackluster. When I first saw it, I look at the spine, I'm like, there's no graphic on the spine except for some weird little dot at the bottom that's not a circular, it's not exactly oval. I don't know what it's supposed to be.
Is it the goo?
I don't know.
Is it the nuclear goo?
And the back has nothing on it. I mean, there's no writing, there's no picture, it's like, do you want to give me a description of what it is? It should list what issues are on it or something, right?
Yeah.
Because it came sealed, so if you saw this in the store, you wouldn't know what issues you need to what are in here or whatnot. And I mean, the cover is an awesome picture,
but
I liked it. But it doesn't say the name of the book or anything. It's like, okay, it's like they finished doing all this work and getting it all together, and they had to get it to the printer the next day, and the graphic designer was off, and so somebody had to just quickly whip up the cover and they said, okay, we'll just take this picture, blow it up larger than it's supposed to be, so you see all the dots. We'll just put the title of the book down the side, and we'll put the UPC symbol on the back, and we'll ship it because they ran out of time. Clearly, that's the issue. They got to the end, realized, oh my God, we never designed the book.
You know what it feels like to me though? Because I sort of agree, but it's like this you would sell to bookstores. because that's how they would display it, by the spine. And it seems very bookstore designy on the cover to me. Like,
It's not going to any bookstores, unfortunately.
What's that?
It's not going to be in any.
Oh,
bookstores.
isn't it? Well, I mean, regardless, I've seen other like novels like this where there's like a picture on the cover and barely something. But I do agree with you.
And how about the words Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
TMNT. I do understand what it means, and for the geeks, we do understand. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Collected Volume 1. This was piss poor packaging.
And
It looks... It's very bad. You can't read this without cracking the spine.
And every one of ours cracked in the same
I was
spot.
bummed about that.
It looks to me, rather than the cover, it looks like this should be underneath a dust cover, a dust jacket.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there should be like the dust jacket. The cover should be like maybe volume 1. That cover, but why not all 4? Unless what they're going to do is after the 4th volume, you're going to be able to lay them out, and all of them will have each different turtle on it. I'd much rather see.
Not that you could be able to tell, but this is
well,
all
same.
the same.
Right.
But I'd much rather see a picture of all 4 Ninja Turtles. It say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you're right, Brian. Some kind of blurb on the back,
Right. There's nothing.
of what
Even
it
if
is.
it was just
collects
the issues.
collects issues. Blah 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 plus blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's just piss poor.
And for
packaging.
something like this, why not a hardback? I would love a hardback of this.
Yeah, or even saying something, since this was put out for the 25th anniversary.
Yeah, there's
Put
Yeah.
something for it, saying in honor of the 25th anniversary or 25th anniversary collection or something along those lines. Just sorry guys at Mirage. It's I actually do like what you do, but this was almost like like Brian said, an afterthought. It was almost like hey, we don't know what to do. Let's just throw it out there.
And there's also some proofreading errors in this thing. I mean,
Really?
There were a couple.
Yeah,
I read
Michelangelo,
some of the dates.
The publication dates in the book says, May 84, and the content it's something different. And then for issue 9, the same thing is like, okay, which is the right date? I mean, come on. How hard is it
Well,
to
the
get
Michelangelo thing though, that's
Established.
That's always been that way. It's because they didn't have a computer with a spell checker at the time when they wrote those, so it's always kind of been misspelled. So
Well,
it's
no,
not
I'm
really
talking about in the book.
his name's misspelled.
No, I know
Right,
that.
Yeah,
but
that's what I mean.
Pants is
I'm
talking
saying
about the
it's
date.
No,
always
I'm
been
talking
that way.
about in the book when it's the cover, the chapter. It says original publication date May of 84. You look in the front, it's not May of 84. The same
May
thing
of
with
86.
issue 9. It says May of 84. It's not May of 84. So that was a little.
They probably used they did a copy it, save
Yeah,
as,
but I mean,
Yeah.
and then they forgot to
proofreading,
change
for
the.
God's sake. I mean, how this is
Now-
it's terrible.
For my saving grace for the packaging is it smells phenomenal.
I was waiting for that.
Oh my god!
I'd pass the Shane smell.
And the pages are pretty bright.
Yeah.
Like, it's some nice stock of paper.
If I would go to I would take this with me to lunch and I would go read in the park. I would eat my lunch and then I would crack this open. I would spend a good 3 minutes smelling the damn thing. It smelled phenomenal. Every time I opened it and I'd flip pages to the bookmark I had, I would just get this waft of print. It was fantastic.
Yeah, the printing is fine. It's just that the cover.
Yeah,
yeah.
the cover packaging, spine cracking in everyone's same spot.
Now, what I am
Nuts.
noticing, though, to go to the point of TMNT, a lot of their I did an image search for TMNT. A lot of their branding is TMNT, like the movie, the video games, some of the cartoons. It seems like they're it's almost like trying to think of what other movies are like that where they just sort
Well,
of
now
use...
that might be more recent with this.
I think that's them
animated
trying
movie.
to separate themselves a bit from what the property is most known for. Like TMNT's like a little more, like the edgier version almost.
I don't know. I'm seeing Google images on a whole bunch of different stuff. That's
Like LOTR.
yeah, like that or what movie? There's been other movies where there's like T2,
KFC.
like
Mystery
T2.
Science Theater, like the MST3.
No, like T2, Terminator 2, T2. Everybody or X2, X-Men 2. You know what I mean? Like they kind of know that you can get away with that kind of like branding and or that abbreviation, and it works because if you establish it enough in a lot of your things, people are going to go, oh, well, that's Teenage. Like here's the movie.
The first movie back in '90 and those they were branded as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
They
no,
didn't-
this is recent. The earliest I'm seeing is like 2006.
Yeah.
I just found something.
Well, when they relaunched the Volume 4 comics, it was just TMNT, and it's kind of just been that way for all their stuff ever since.
Yeah.
But this isn't those comics.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just saying that's what it's most known for in a lot of these circles now.
It doesn't make the list, but it's getting
there. All right. Do we want to rate it? Give it a rating?
3.
I'm in agreement.
I'm going 4 or 5 because I loved reading it. Something I missed out on.
I'm going with a 2.
Whoa, pants is going below the belt.
I'm gonna go a 4.5. I really enjoyed rereading it, and I'm really looking forward to reading more, rereading more, rereading more, and just I just really enjoyed it.
As we've been doing this in my expansion of black and white comics that I always, like so many others, threw away as, black and white. I love the coloring, the lack of coloring, the gray tones, the art. I loved it. I can't wait to see more.
Is that everybody?
Oh,
Well, the guy,
Joe?
He's
You
the
don't
guy
know what
before
my
to say
rating would
5. So.
What would you say?
I go with Brian. I'd say 4.5.
Okay.
Oh, come on. I thought you were going to say 7.
That's 3 4.5s. Haha.
By the
If
way,
it was Return to New York, it would have been a full 5.
I'd give that first issue a 5. I love that first issue. I really do. And in its historical context and everything else. And it's kind of interesting to see the color version that he has.
I want to see that. I'm going to go walk over there and look at that.
I mean, I didn't need it, and obviously they didn't put it out that way, so it's not like I'm expecting it or clamoring for it. But it's kind of cool to see some of the color stuff and just to see what they would do.
I would
They
like.
actually just recently recolored that first issue. It was in the last previews.
And that toy you have of the new ones, I loved it until I saw the black and white ones. And even before reading this, I thought they looked
They did
sleeker.
look cool. I still want to get, if I ever see them at a con and cheap, but they probably weren't cheap. They're probably expensive. But these first oversized colored versions, I only have volumes 1 and 3. I never got 2 and 4. And I'd like to just have them just to have them because it's
I
colored.
might have some extras of those. I could just send them over to you if you want.
Oh, really? That'd be awesome.
What do you need, 2 and 4?
2 and 4, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll look
Extras,
through. I
that's
think I
fine.
have. Yeah, I think every time I'd see those at a con or something, I'd just buy them again. Just, whatever I could find, because I know they're pretty rare.
Yeah.
Joey, where would you... where are the Turtles at now? I know you talked a little bit about it, but where are they now in terms of comics and things?
Oh, well, in 2001, Peter Laird, I should also mention at some point, Kevin Eastman, sold his share in the property and anything, so he doesn't co-own it anymore. But at 2001, Peter Laird started the Volume 4 comics, TMNT, which is still going on now, and just, whenever they come out, they come out basically at this point. There's been the Tales of the TMNT ongoing series, which is, it's got, not every story is great, but a lot the stuff from Tristan Jones and Paul Harmon, which is the issue I gave you guys, that was their first issue, has really kind of, lit a fire under the property again, I think, and like they're telling really exciting stories in that book.
Cool.
But basically if you were to read the Volume 4 though, it's quite different from the stuff going on here. Although it does pick up after it, it does build on it, but the tone is very different.
Sweet. All right, cool. Is that it? Anybody else have anything else they want to say about Turtles? Turtle Power?
Turtle Power.
Heroes in a Half Shell?
I was gonna say there are other people that wrote stuff and drew stuff for the Turtles, like Rick Beach, Michael Zulli, Stephen Bissett, Mark Bode. I'd say track down that stuff too. All that stuff's really good.
I'm really curious to see Michael Zulli on this.
I think you would like that story a lot, because that's basically like the first issue, kind of reset, and it looked from like a different perspective.
Yeah.
I think you'd probably dig that stuff. That's one of Mr. Phil's favorite comics.
Some of the issues that I was a little disappointed that weren't in here, I guess, I didn't really expect to see them in here, but I was hoping I would, is the issues that they released where the Turtles taught you how to use the weapons that they used. Really? They were instructional issues. I had the...
good.
Which one used the nunchucks? Michelangelo. I had that issue, and I actually made my own nunchucks so that I could try to do it at home.
Yeah, those were put out they were put out by a different company, I believe.
Yeah.
Those issues. But Jamie actually found me one of those at the Wild Pig a while ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was going to say every time we go to one, like you come to Wild Pig, I always seem to find something for you. Ninja Turtles, here you go. Throw it down the thing.
Do you know what kind of turtles they are? Anybody in the room?
Red-eared sliders.
Would you?
Green.
Yeah.
Box turtles.
They're,
Box turtle. That's the only turtle I know. They're not snappers.
I was asking the crew.
Oh, I thought you were just throwing it out as a general question.
No. Yeah, that's it says that's just recently in the second volume they were determined to be red-eared sliders. That's kind of funny. Cool. All right. Well, then, if we're all done with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Joey, thank you. That was Joey. Matt asked whose suggestion that was. That was Joey. Like he said in the beginning of the episode, he's been trying to get us, and it just timed out that this book came out, so it was perfect. And why should we not read a trade that isn't any less than 600 pages?
600 pages.
Yeah, we're banner this year for page count.
Holy
We got From Helsing right over there. You want to get into that?
No.
Whoa.
That'll be a book of
Later.
the year. Like we'll figure out where in the rotation next year the independent other is, and if
At
it's
the
like
end of the year.
if it's like 8 years or 10, 8 months, we'll do it then.
Yeah. Because I want to, but
Yeah,
no.
it's too much. So for October we are doing Banana Fish, and that is from Viz Media, and hopefully we'll do both 1 and 2. We know 1 is coming. And 2 is on back order from In Stock Trade. So hopefully we'll get to do volume 2 as well. We'll keep you posted throughout the month. So that's Banana Fish. And that's for manga month, obviously. And then in November, we are doing Bone, the one volume edition, which is the entire Bone story by Jeff Smith. That is Geek's Choice. That is Jamie's Choice. That is for the 50th Book of the Month selection. So again, why not do something that's
I'm going to go back and add up
1,000
our
pages
page
more.
count.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Of all the stuff we've done? Oh, my God, you're out of your mind.
What are you going to do?
Add up the page count for all the Book of the Months this year.
How many pages? Wow, that's insane. So that'll be November, and you can find that on In Stock Trades. You can also find that at comicbreak.com. They're giving us, they're also doing a discount on that, which is awesome. By all means, go to the forum and join in on the discussion on any of those volumes. And I guess that's it, right? Okay.
Oh, can I throw a little plug out?
Oh, sorry. Yes. By all means, do.
I'm one of the 4 hosts for the Matinee Idols movie podcast, and it's kind of like a roundtable discussion. Like we pick a movie like twice a month and talk about it. So far, we've done Ghostbusters and True Romance. Our next movie is Scanner Darkly, and that should be out like a week or 2 from now. It's Matinee Idols, and the website's matineeidols.blogspot.com.
Can I just give my review of Scanner Darkly right now?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Sucky McSucksville. And
Not a fan of it.
Too keen on
one
that
of the
either.
very few movies of my entire life that I did not sit all the way through because I just had the shits of it. And I was actually like working on my basement at the same time, and I'm like, I can't even like have it on in the background while I'm spackling. It was so awful. I had to change it. I swear to God, that's what I was doing.
I can believe
I just
that.
can't do. I can't
tried.
take it
You
anymore.
You should have spackled your eyes.
Oh my God!
I think I made it 30 minutes into that movie and gave up.
Wow, yeah, it was tough.
Brian Deemer, I couldn't even spackle to it.
By the way,
I think you won't be tuning into that episode.
No. If it's longer than 30 seconds to say don't watch it, then it's too long. Yeah.
the Ghostbusters are also celebrating their 25th anniversary.
Yes, they are.
All right, cool.
All right. Well, this episode of Comic Geek Speak was sponsored by InStockTrades.com. Go to InStockTrades.com to save up to 37% off on all trade paperbacks, hardcovers, and manga. If you order $50 or more, you'll get free shipping. InStockTrades.com. If you'd like to send us an email, we're at comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. Visit our website at comicgeekspeak.com. Leave us a voicemail. The number is 215-279-8839. Follow us on Twitter. We're Comic Geek Speak. Be part of the greatest community of comic fans ever. Go to thecomicforums.com. And as always, we're uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.